What if I told you that for most of human history, the food you crave most wasn't even a food at all? For over 3,000 years, it was a bitter, spicy, frothy medicine that was so valuable it was used to pay taxes, buy slaves, and even fund empires. It wasn't until a series of industrial accidents, desperate wartime shortages, and a forgotten pot left on a stove that it transformed into the silky, melt-in-your-mouth luxury we recognize today. From the currency of ancient gods to a pink discovery that stayed hidden for 13 years, we are peeling back the wrapper on the world's most addictive substance. Welcome to Food Genesis. Today, we are auditing the evolution of chocolate. 1. Dark chocolate. The currency of empires. We begin at the root. Long before it was a candy bar, the cacao tree was a sacred pillar of Mesoamerican life. The Olmecs first cultivated it around 1500 BCE, but it was the Mayans and Aztecs who elevated it to the status of god food. In their markets, you didn't pay with gold, you paid with beans. Authentic dark chocolate is defined by its purity, requiring at least 50% cacao solids. But if you want the true forensic taste of the bean, you look for the 99% bars. The texture we love today, however, is a modern miracle. In the 19th century, Belgian chocolatiers invented conching, a process of grinding the chocolate for days at a time to achieve a microscopic smoothness. Depending on the soil, a dark bar can taste like anything from citrus to tobacco. It is the purest expression of the earth. 2. Milk chocolate. The 8-year struggle. For centuries, chocolate remained dark and brittle. In 1875, a Swiss visionary named Daniel Peter decided to do the impossible: combine milk with chocolate. The problem? Milk is mostly water, and water makes chocolate seize and spoil instantly. Peter spent 8 grueling years failing until he looked next door to his neighbor, Henri Nestle. Nestle had just invented powdered milk for infant formula. By removing the water, they created the first stable milk chocolate. Interestingly, American milk chocolate has a unique tang because Milton Hershey used partially lipolyzed milk to preserve it in the days before refrigeration. That slightly sour note became the standard American flavor profile, an accidental byproduct of logistics that turned into a national preference. 3. White chocolate. The EFTA outlaw for nearly a century, purists argued that white chocolate wasn't actually chocolate. Technically, they were right. It contains 0 cacao solids, the dark part of the bean. It is made strictly from cocoa butter, sugar, and dairy. Nestle introduced it in 1930 as the Gallic bar in Europe, primarily as a way to use up excess cocoa butter. It was so controversial that the EFTA didn't even officially recognize it as chocolate until 2004. Because cocoa butter melts exactly at body temperature, it is notoriously difficult to work with, making it a canvas for flavors like matcha or vanilla rather than a standalone star. 4. Ruby chocolate. The 13-year secret. In 2017, the chocolate world was rocked by the first new category discovery in 80 years, ruby chocolate. This isn't white chocolate with food coloring, it is a distinct genetic and chemical marvel. Sourced from specific beans in Ecuador and the Ivory Coast, these ruby beans contain natural precursors that turn pink when processed without fermentation. It took the scientists at Barry Callebaut 13 years of research to unlock the secret of maintaining that natural rose hue and its tart, berry-like flavor. It sits right between milk and dark chocolate, offering a citrusy snap that requires no added fruit. 5. Blonde chocolate. The beautiful mistake. While ruby was a result of intense research, blonde chocolate was a total accident. In 2006, French pastry chef Frédéric Baud left a pot of white chocolate in a heated bain-marie for too long. He forgot about it, assuming it would burn and ruin. Instead, the milk solids underwent the Maillard reaction, the same chemical browning that happens to a seared steak. The result was a golden, toasty chocolate that tasted like salted caramel and shortbread. Valrhona commercialized this mistake as Dulce in 2012. It represents a bridge between white chocolate and butterscotch, adding a depth that the original white variety simply lacks. 6. Modica chocolate. The Aztec time capsule. If you want to know what chocolate tasted like 500 years ago, you have to go to the town of Modica in Sicily. When the Spanish occupied Sicily in the 16th century, they brought back the Aztec method of cold processing cacao. Unlike modern chocolate, Modica chocolate is never refined. The temperature never exceeds 40 C, meaning the sugar crystals never melt. When you bite into a bar, the texture is sandy, grainy, and brittle. It is a flavored stone that mimics the ancient ritual of the Aztecs, often infused with chili pepper or cinnamon. It is the only place in the world where the 16th century recipe remains a living industry. 7. Single origin. The wine of the bean. In the early 2000s, the craft chocolate movement began to treat cacao like fine wine. Most commercial bars are blends, a mix of beans from everywhere to create a consistent, boring taste. Single origin chocolate comes from one specific estate or region. For example, Venezuelan cacao from the Chuao region is so rare it is only accessible by boat, with only 20 tons produced per year. These bars aren't just candy, they are a map. Madagascar beans are famously fruity and acidic, while Ecuadorian beans carry heavy floral notes. It is a shift from sweetness to terroir. 8. Gianduja, the wartime hack. We wouldn't have Nutella without Napoleon Bonaparte. During the Napoleonic Wars, a British blockade made cacao imports nearly impossible in Italy. Local chocolatiers in Turin were desperate to stretch their dwindling supply. They decided to grind up local Piedmont hazelnuts and mix them into the chocolate paste. This mixture, containing about 30% hazelnut, was named Gianduja. It was smoother and more spreadable than pure chocolate. After World War II, when cacao was again in short supply, Pietro Ferrero used this old Turin trick to create a product called supercreamer, which eventually became Nutella. A global empire was built on a wartime shortage. 9. Raw chocolate. The living enzyme. Standard chocolate making requires roasting beans at high temperatures to kill bacteria and develop deep flavors. But in the 2000s, the raw food movement pushed for a version that never crosses 42 C. Raw chocolate is intensely bitter and astringent. By skipping the roasting process, makers claim to preserve the natural enzymes and antioxidants of the bean. It lacks the smooth, brown flavor of traditional bars, often tasting more like a fermented fruit than a dessert. It is chocolate in its most vibrationally active and medically potent state. 10. Drinking chocolate. The original ritual. Long before the solid bar existed, chocolate was a beverage. The Aztecs drank it cold, bitter, and frothy, often mixing it with cornmeal for body. When it hit Europe in the 1500s, it became a hot luxury for aristocrats. But don't confuse this with hot cocoa powder. True European drinking chocolate is made by melting actual solid bars into milk or water. In Paris or Turin, the chocolate chaud is so thick you can almost eat it with a spoon. It is the ultimate return to the source, a rich, decadent liquid that reminds us why the ancients called this substance a gift from the gods. Chocolate isn't just a snack, it is a forensic record of human ingenuity and accidental discovery. From the cold-pressed crumbles of Sicily to the caramelized accidents of France, every bite contains a history of war, trade, and science. I'm your host for Food Genesis. Which of these origins surprised you the most? Are you a purist, or is white chocolate real enough for you? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe to audit the history of your favorite flavors. Stay curious,